Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Thakur Kamora Swara Rupa Kahasanatan Rupa Kahamatan Kahadasa Raghunatha Patita Pavan Prabhu Patita Pavan Kahamura Bhatta Yuga Kaha Kavira Eka kole kota gela goranatara Ela goranatara Pasane kutibo mata Anale pasibo Kutipo vata Anale pasibo Goranga gunire Nidhi kota gele pavo Se samba sangira sangi ye koilo bila sato bilo bila se sangana paya kande narotamada Ye anilo prema dana Koruna Thakur Pachu No prema dana Koruna Prachu He who brought the treasure of divine love and who is filled with compassion and mercy. Where is such a personality as Srinivas Acharya gone? Where is my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where is my Raghunath Bhatta, Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to attain the association of the Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. So today is the disappearance day of two Goswamis. I'll just read a little bit. There's not really a lot mentioned about these two individuals. They're on our calendar, so it's appropriate that we discuss them. So first one is Sri Burgarbha Goswami. It says here that Sri Bhagavatam Goswami was a disciple of Sri Gadadhar Pandit, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 12, text 81, and the Radhi Gopinath Sanyat Nukunjila. He is Prema Manjari, or Bhadra Rekhika. He shared an intimate friendship with Sri Lokanath Goswami, so much that in the Bhakti Rakara 1.3.17, it says that Lokanath's affection for Bhagarbha was well known everywhere. They only had different bodies. In spirit, they were one. According to the Sadhana Dipika, Bhagarbha was Lokanath's parental uncle. Lokanath Goswami and Bhagavatam Goswami, inspired by Lord Chaitanya, they were the first and the most senior devotees to settle in Vrindavan before the arrival of Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatan Goswami. They tried to uncover the lost holy places of Radha Govindaji. Bhagavatam and Lokanath Goswamis found Sri Krishna's pastime forest by a humble method of surrender. They simply wandered around Vrindavan, calling out the names of their 12 forests: Vrindavan, Kamyavan, Mahavan, Talavan, and Srimati Vrindadevi, the maintainer of the forest, an expansion of Krishna's pastime potency, revealed the exact location of each and every forest. His samadhi stands near Sri Rupa Goswami's samadhi in the Radha Damodar temple courtyard. Everybody's been around the samadhis, and you got is Bhajan Kutir and Rupa Goswami's, and then kind of off to the end there, towards, it's a wall there. This is where his samadhi is located at. It's kind of by a very auspicious location. Some believe that to avoid material distractions, Bhagavatam Goswami would perform his bhajan underground. So he received the name Bhagarbha. Bu means earth, Garbha means cave, womb, hidden place. But yet the Sankhya, Niran Yamrita, adds the following comments on Bhagavatam Goswami. I offer my reverence to the illustrious Bhagavatam Prabhu, who is said to have been born from the bowels of the earth. He bestows love of Krishna. He takes pleasure in the service of Govinda Dev, is compassionate, simple, and always joyful. So all glories to Sri Bhagavatam Goswami. Now another Goswami who we're recognizing today as the disappearance day is Sri Kashivara Pandit. Sri Kashivara Pandit Goswami had a temple near Ramapur at Chatara. Mahaprabhu sent him to Vrindavan later on in his life. His disciple was Sri Govinda Gosai, the pujari of the Sri Govinda Dev. When Rupa Goswami discovered Sri Govinda Dev's Sri Vigara as Gomati Tila, he immediately sent word to Mahaprabhu at Puri. Mahaprabhu in turn requested Sri Kashivara Pandit to go to Vrindavan. Kashivara, however, expressed that to have to give up your association will cause my heart to split in two. Therefore, please consider how I can honor your request without giving up my life. Mahaprabhu could understand the heart of Kashivara, and therefore he gave him a self-manifested deity of himself. Mahaprabhu sat down along with his Vigraha and accepted prasad, at which Kashivara's faith was kindled. This deity was established on the right side of Sri Govinda Dev, and then he began to serve them with great love. So he was, the first pujari there. It was probably one of the first instances of having Lord Chaitanya on the altar without Nityananda, right next to Radha and Krishna. So those are about those two Vaishnavas. And so we'll continue with the reading of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And we are in chapter, Adi Lila chapter 10, we're in text 131. We've kind of, looking for Leela Shakti, she kind of read other so it's all good. So we're kind of, actually this is where I left off last time. She kind of dove into other nectar of the Lord Chaitanya. Okay, so 131, translation. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Text 131. In the list of devotees at Jagannath Puri, which begins with Paramananda Puri, Swarup Damodar, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Gopinath Acharya, Kashi Mishra was the fifth, Rajuma Mishra the sixth, Bhavananda Roy the seventh. Lord Chaitanya took great pleasure in meeting with them. Purport. In Jagannath Puri, Lord Chaitanya lived at the house of Kashi Mishra, who was the priest of the king. Later, this house was inherited by Vrageshvara Pandit, and then by his disciple, Gopal Guru Goswami, who established a deity of Radhakanta there. The Gora Ganades Dipika 193 states that Kashi Mishra was formerly Kumja in Mathura. Prajuma Mishra, an inhabitant of Orisha, was a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prajuma Mishra was born of a Brahmin family, and Ramananda Roy of a non-Brahmin family. Yet Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised Prajuma Mishra to take instruction from Ramananda Roy. This incident is described in Anchalila, chapter 5. Bhavananda Roy was the father of Sri Ramananda Roy. His residence was in Alanatha, Brahmagiri, which is about 12 miles west of Jagannath Puri. By caste, he belonged to the Karna community of Orissa, whose members were sometimes known as Kayathas and sometimes as Sudras. His son, Ramananda Roy, was the governor of Madras under the control of King Pachapuruja of Jagannath Puri. 132. Embracing Ramananda, Bhavananda, the Lord declared to him, "You formerly appeared as Pandu, and your 5 sons appeared as the 5 Pandavas." The 5 sons of Bhavananda Roy were Ramananda Roy, Patanyaka, Gopinath, Kalinidhi, Subhanidhi, and Nyaka Vanadath. 134. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Bhavananda Roy, "Your 5 sons are all my dear devotees. Ramananda Roy and I are one, although our bodies are different." Purport. The Gora Ganades Dipika 120 through 124 states that Ramananda Roy was formerly Arjuna. He is also considered to have been the incarnation of the Gopi Lalita, although in the opinion of others, he was an incarnation of Vishaka Devi. He was the most confidential devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Although I am a sannyas, my mind is sometimes perturbed when I see a woman, but Ramananda Roy is greater than me, for he is always undisturbed, even when he touches a woman. Only Ramananda Roy was endowed with the prerogative to touch a woman in this way. No one should imitate him. Unfortunately, there are rascals who imitate the activities of Ramananda Roy. We need not discuss them further. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's final pastimes, Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar, always engaged in reciting suitable verses from Srimad Bhagavatam and other books to pacify the Lord's ecstatic feelings of separation from Krishna. When Lord Chaitanya went to southern India, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya advised him to meet Ramananda Roy, declaring that there was no devotee as advanced in understanding the conjugal love of Krishna and the gopis. While touring South India, Lord Chaitanya met Ramananda Roy on the bank of the Godavari. And in their long discourses, the Lord took the position of a student, and Ramananda Roy instructed him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu concluded these discourses by saying, "My dear Ramananda Roy, both you and I are madmen, and therefore we meet intimately on an equal level." Lord Chaitanya advised Ramananda Roy to resign from his government post and come back to Jagannath Puri to live with him. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refused to see Maharaj Prataparuja because he was the king, Ramananda Roy, by Vaishnav scheme, arranged a meeting between the Lord and the king. This is described in the Madhya Lila, chapter 12, verses 41 through 47. Sri Ramananda Roy was present during the water sports of the Lord after the Ratha Yatra festival. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered Ramananda Roy and Sri Sanatana Goswami to be equal in their renunciation. For although Sri Ramananda Roy was a grihasta engaged in governmental service, and Sri Sanatana Goswami was in the renounced order of complete detachment from material activities, they were both servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who kept Krishna in the center of their activities. Sri Ramananda Roy was one of the 3.5 personalities from whom Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discussed the most confidential topics of Krishna consciousness. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised Pradyumna Rishi to learn the science of Krishna from Ramananda Roy. As Subal always assisted Krishna in the dealings with Radharani and Krishna Lila, so Ramananda Roy assisted Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his feelings of separation from Krishna. Sri Ramananda Roy was the author of the Jagannath Vallabha Nataka. So, Om Ganda Timarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Om Itamina Tajmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So all these different pastimes are discussed in this purport by Srila Prabhupada are all expounded upon in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we'll read these different pastimes. But you have the talking about here, the Lord Chaitanya met Ramananda Roy, and probably if you took 2 chapters in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that we should really become familiar with, and one is Adi Lila chapter 4, and Madhya Lila chapter 8. Madhya Lila chapter 8 is the chapter where Lord Chaitanya sits down with Ramananda Roy. Chapter 4 of Adi Lila is describing who Lord Chaitanya is, and understanding who Lord Chaitanya is not only Sambandhana, but it also helps us understand what the goal is, why we're doing what we're doing, why we understand Lord Chaitanya in relationship to our devotional service. And then all these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, this is ultimately what we're emulating. This is everything we're doing as Vaishnavas to a degree is handed down from Lord Chaitanya. This chapter 8 is a very important verse because it also sets priorities of what's Lord Chaitanya's establishing, what is the essence of devotional service, what is the highest practice, and what is the goal. And another pastime here was the king of Jagannath Puri wanted to meet Lord Chaitanya as soon as he shows up at Jagannath Puri, of course, everybody wants to meet with him and see him. And the king was no different. He was a very pious king. But the Lord would refuse to meet with him because he was a king. He was extremely strict. He thought that he described that meeting with a king is like meeting with a worldly type person. It's not the business of a sannyasi to associate with them. And this, of course, it's to set an example. But the devotees, the Vaishnavas, are so compassionate that they kept making arrangements. They'd approach Lord Chaitanya, that they, on the behalf of this king, different Vaishnavas would. And it primarily here was mentions Ramananda Roy, but Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was also a chief component of trying to get Lord Chaitanya to meet with this king. And Lord Chaitanya would actually get upset when they come to him and ask him, this is a very nice person, just please give him a darshan. And the Lord would be very angry. But internally, he would be happy. But being the king has its advantages because, you get special access to the deities, because he's in that. And during Rath Yatra festival, he'd sweep the cart, so he typically get in the front of the line when, things are in the ceremonies. And there was one instance, even during this whole process, where Lord Chaitanya refused to meet him, the king was sweeping the road. And Lord Chaitanya was dancing with his associates, and actually he fell at one time, and the king picked him up. And internally, the Lord was very pleased with this. But externally, he showed being unhappy. But eventually, by the persistence of the Vaishnavas, there was arrangements made in this garden after a festival, and they brought the king in. They had him change clothes. Sarvabhauma, they set this up, and then he came in while the Lord was sleeping, lying down, and he brought him in and he massaged the Lord's feet. And then he started chanting some prayers from the 10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. And then the Lord very much appreciated this and said, continue. So he finally got, due to the mercy of the Vaishnavas, he was able to meet with the Lord. And we can understand this, that these devotees, Vaishnavas, are extremely rare, and these pure devotees are extremely compassionate for the fallen souls, and by their mercy, this is what's going to carry us. They're the wave, the river that's going to carry us back to Krishna's abode. So it's kind of interesting. He talked about Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya mentions here that Ramananda Roy and Sanatana Goswami, he talks about these two personalities, how the appearance, if you look at them, they're completely from different backgrounds, and they completely look different. Ramananda Roy was a governor, so he would his appearance and dress would be very opulent, whereas Sanatana Goswami was a sannyasi, and he looked very impoverished, but spiritually, they both were extremely wealthy internally. And the Chaitanya Bhagavat, there's a story where there's this Brahmin who came to Navadvip. And he'd previously, Lord Chaitanya asked Nityananda to go to Navadvip, to leave Vrindavan. Not Vrindavan, but Jagannath Puri. He wanted him to preach. He wanted him to go back to Navadvip and preach. So Nityananda left, and along with some of his associates, and he went back. He described it took him a little while because of their ecstasy. They constantly would get lost. They would lose which direction they were going. But eventually they made it back. Well, before they actually got there, at Panihati, Nityananda had a desire to dress opulently. He looked like a regular sadhu prior to that. And it's described that once he had this desire, all these different individuals showed up with all kinds of jewels and silk clothing, one after another. And so Nityananda, and not only him, but his associates all dressed very opulently. And it is described, Lord Chaitanya is telling this story to this Brahmin. So this Brahmin is Navadvip, and he sees Nityananda dressed this way. So he has some doubts. Similarly, Gadadhar had some doubts when he saw Pundarik Vijayanidhi. And so externally, sometimes we see somebody, we cannot formulate an opinion about somebody. Of course, there's a saying that you judge a book by its cover, but spiritually you can't do that because it'll get you in trouble, especially when you're dealing with Vaishnavas. We've got to be very careful. This is actually the purport of this story. So this Brahmin, he goes to Jagannath Puri, he approaches Lord Chaitanya, and it is described that he just didn't come up to Lord Chaitanya. He picked a proper time at a proper place, and he wanted to reveal his mind to Lord Chaitanya. And of course, Lord Chaitanya understood. And when he did that, he told him about his seeing Nityananda and how, here's this Avaduta, and he's dressed very opulently, and he chews betel nut, and he's pointing all these things out. This doesn't appear to be in line with, Brahminical activity or. And so then Lord Chaitanya explains to him that, and of course all of us were reading the book, that we have to be very careful about how, we judge somebody by the way they look. And he used this example of a story, and that we have to be very, not just criticizing a Vaishnava, but even laughing at something. He said, if you laugh at Lord Chaitanya said, if you laugh at a Vaishnava, a qualified devotee, that does an immoral act, you'll be vanquished. So we have to be very careful. Even though somebody makes a mistake or does something that we consider, immoral, we have to be very careful about judging. So he says, so to illustrate this story, he talks about a story that's in the chapter 10, I think it's chapter 85, Canto 10. And when Krishna and Balaram went to school, when they left, their Dakshin, for their guru, their teacher, requested that they bring his dead son back to life, their child. So the Lord went to Yamaraj. They both went there, Krishna and Balaram. And they got the guru's son, they brought him back. And Devaki heard about this. And she said, well, if you can do that for your guru, can you bring my 6 sons back? Kamsa killed one by one, each one of her sons. And so, to please their mother, they went to get their 6 sons. But they went to see Bali Maharaj. And instead of going to Yamaraj, they went there. And when they approached Bali Maharaj, he was very humble, and he offered nice prayers to Krishna and Balaram. And he prayed, that to help him get out of this material world, to free him from this, the clutches of Maya. So then Krishna explained to him why he came. He wants these 6 sons of Devaki. And so then he tells a story of how these 6 sons, Lord Krishna said, if I just bring them back and they drink the breast milk, they will be relieved of their sinful activity. So we hear, there's so many times in all these pastimes how all these demons were cursed for one thing after another, and they became, and then eventually the very fortunate, they got Krishna's mercy and they were relieved from their sinful activity. So these 6 sons were the sons of Marishi, who were the grandson of Brahma. Rishi was the son of Brahma. And Lord Brahma, at one point, he took the form of a stag, I guess it's like a deer. And he got lusty desires for his daughter. And he chased after his daughter in the form of a stag. At the time of Lord Brahma, he didn't procreate like we procreate now with sex life. It was all done from the mind. All these sons, all these sages, and then at the time of Dask, he changed this method of procreation because it was a slow process. He wanted to, accelerate this process. So then we have what we know today, the intercourse that everyone engages in. So when Brahma chased after his daughter in the form of a deer, these 6 sages, the demigods, they laughed at Brahma. And when they laughed at him, they became cursed. And they had to take birth. First off, they took the birth in the house of Hiranyakasipu. And then they were killed by Indra. And of course, to cut the story short, they eventually took birth as the sons of Devaki. And Kamsa, one by one, killed them. And you can imagine how many yugas went from the time of Hiranyakasipu, from the time 5,000 years ago, how much suffering they had to go through, birth after birth after birth. So Lord Chaitanya is explaining this, and then he brings these 6 sons back to Devaki, and then after they drink the blessed milk, they relieved from their mercy, and then he tells, as typically what happens, he tells them to go back to the heavenly planets and not to engage in that type of activity. But Lord Chaitanya points out that these were not just ordinary individuals. These were people who had good character. They're living in the heavenly planets. They had, in the mode of goodness type people. And you can see the reaction that they made. Okay. And you see, just in the mode of goodness, that they committed this offense, the reaction. So Lord Chaitanya said that, how the conditions of the, if the perfected beings can get this type of reaction, you can imagine the troubles of the people on like Earth, and how difficult it is to get out of this situation that we've got ourselves into in this material world. And so we see also in this purport, we already mentioned that even though we're so engrossed into this material condition, like King Pachapuruja was, who was considered to be in the mode of passion as a king, and really engrossed. One thing about being in the management, even Gopakumar found himself in this same situation, he also became the king of Orissa for a while. But even though he had access, because as the king, he got, the front of the line, he was able to go get, in the temple, he had special privileges. He still had to deal with other management of things, like other kingdoms, other emperors, all these other things that as the king has to deal with, isn't he? Just, dealing with it. And so he found these things to be disturbances in his sadhaka. So he gave up the position of being the king so that he could focus more on his devotional practice. But then he goes to the heavenly planets. He winds up being Indra. And then he finds himself in the same situation. Even though he can increase devotional service, he can manage. He found that, this is to be in his bhajan. When you start, especially when you start internalizing our practice, going from the Vaidya platform to the Raganuga spontaneous platform, this regulated type activity, especially in that you find these kingdom. And also he found himself in the situation of being Brahma. Repeatedly, he'd give up these different situations because he found them to be impediments to his devotional practice. But it is due to the Vaishnavas themselves that we are only shelter, and our only mercy is that we have each other. Because without each other, it's impossible. It's almost impossible with each other. Without each other, it's practically impossible. There's really no hope. And we see that no matter what condition you find yourself in, that you can, by the mercy of Vaishnavas, we can be successful. So the last thing he mentions here in this purport, he says that Sri Ramananda Roy, Swarup Damodar, there were 3.5 personalities for whom Lord Chaitanya discussed the most confidential topics with, and that was Ramananda Roy, Swarup Damodar, Sikhi Mahidi, and Sikhi Mahidi's sister, She was the half. And so Lord Chaitanya was extremely strict when it comes to associating with women. So even though Siki's sister got to hear these confidential topics, she was in. She was in. She had to do it at a distance. She could not be within close proximity. But she was also under the shelter of her brother, which allowed her to be in that situation. She wasn't independent in the fact that been able to hear these topics, these extremely confidential topics. That's a pretty selective group of devotees. You got to understand, Swarup Damodar was a sannyasi, renounced. We just mentioned how Ramananda Roy was a governor, and from what's considered a type of Sudra family. And then Sikhi Medi was a Brahmin, and then his wife. So he had pretty much all types of personalities and caste were included into this. There was no exclusion, which is important that we can, that if you practice this process, eventually we'll become qualified to hear and engage in these activities. Okay, I'll move on. Any questions or any comments, clarifications on that purport? Very, a lot in there. There's a lot to be taken from this. Okay, let's read 135 and 136. King Prataparuja of Orisha and Oriya devotees Krishnananda and Shivananda and Paramananda Mahaprata, Bhagavanacharya, Brahmananda Bharati, Sri Sikhi Mahiti, and Murari Mahiti, constantly associated with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu while he resided in Jagannath Puri. Purport. Just to finish up, that Brahmin, I didn't finish. He went back to Jagannath, Navadvip, and he approached Nityananda, and then he revealed to Nityananda how affected his mentality was, defected. And then he got the mercy of Nityananda after he got the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So there was some closure there. He made sure he went back and approached Nityananda. And that's in the Chaitanya Bhagavatam. There's a lot of nice stories in there about how when Nityananda was dressed, and we're not going to get too into it, how different people seen him differently. So purport, Prataparuja Maharaj, who belonged to the dynasty of the Ganga kings and whose capital was Tutak, was the emperor of Risas and a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It was by the arrangement of Ramananda Roy and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that he was able to personally serve Lord Chaitanya. In the Gora Ganadesh Dipika 118, it is said that King Indradyumna, who established the temple of Jagannath Puri thousands of years ago, later took birth again in his own family as Maharaj Prataparuja during the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Maharaj Prataparuja was as powerful as King Indra. The drama named Chaitanya Chandrodya was written under his direction. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adikanta chapter 5, Paramananda Mahapatra is described as follows. Paramananda Mahapatra was among the devotees who took birth in Orissa and accepted Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as their only asset. In the ecstasy of conjugal love, he always thought of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bhagavanacharya was a very learned scholar, was formerly an inhabitant of Halishara, but he left everything to live with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. His relationship with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was friendly, like that of a cowherd boy. He was always friendly to Swarup Gosai, but he was staunchly devoted to the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He sometimes invited Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his house. Bhagavanacharya was a very liberal and simple. His father, Sanananda Khan, was completely materialistic, and his younger brother, Gopal Bhattacharya was a staunch Mayavad philosopher who had studied very elaborately. When his brother came to Jagannath Puri, Bhagavan Acharya wanted to hear from him about Mayavad philosophy, but Swarup Damodar forbade him to do so. And there the matter stopped. Once a friend of Bhagavan Acharya's from Bengal wanted to recite a drama that he had written that was against the principles of devotional service. And although Bhagavan Acharya wanted to recite this drama before Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swarup Damodar, the Lord's secretary, did not allow him to do so. Later, Swarup Damodar pointed out the drama's many mistakes and disagreements with the conclusions of devotional service. And the author became aware of the faults in his writing and then surrendered to Swarup Damodar, begging his mercy. This is described in Anchalita chapter 5, verses 91 through 158. Anybody wanted to see Lord Chaitanya or make a request of like this, of have him read something or share something they have written or some, it always had to be approved first by Swarup Damodar. In the Gora Ganadesh Dipika 189, it is said that Sikhi Mahidi was formerly an assistant of Srimati Radharani named Ragaleka. His sister, Madhavi, was also an assistant of Srimati Radharani and was named Kalakeli. Sikhi Mahidi, Madhavi, and their brother Murari Mahiti were all unalloyed devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who could not forget him for a moment in of their lives. There's a book in the Oriental language called Chaitanya Charita Mahakayava, in which there are many narrations about Sikhi Mahidi. One narration concerns his seeing an ecstatic dream. Sikhi Mahidi always engaged in serving the Lord in his mind. One night, while he was rendering such service, he fell asleep. And while he was asleep, his brother and sister came to awaken him. At that time, he was in full ecstasy because he was having a wonderful dream of Lord Chaitanya while visiting the temple of Jagannath. He was entering and again coming out of the body of Jagannath and looking at the Jagannath deity. Thus, as soon as he had awakened, he embraced his brother and sister and informed them, "My dear brother and sister, I have had a wonderful dream, and now I shall explain to you. The activities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the son of Mother Sachi, are certainly most wonderful. I saw that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while visiting the temple of Jagannath, was entering the body of Jagannath and again coming out of his body. I am still seeing the same dream. Do you think I have become deranged? Am I seeing the same dream? And the most wonderful thing is that as soon as I came near Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he embraced me with his long arms." As Sikhi Mahidi spoke to his brother and sister in this way, his voice faltered, and there were tears in his eyes. Thus the brothers and sisters went to the temple of Jagannath, and there they saw Lord Chaitanya in the Jagma Mohan Kirtan Hall, looking at the beauty of the Jagannath deity, just as in Sikhi Mahidi's dream. The Lord was so magnanimous that he immediately embraced Sikhi Mahidi, exclaiming, "You are the elder brother of Murari." Being thus embraced, Sikhi Mahidi felt ecstatic transcendental bliss. Thus he and his brother and his sister always engaged in rendering service to the Lord. Murari Mahiti, the younger brother of Sikhi Mahidi, is described in the Madhya-lila, chapter 10, verse 44. 137. Mahavidevi, the 17th of the prominent devotees, was the younger sister of Sikhi Mahidi. He was considered to have formerly been the maidservant of Srimati Radharani. Purport in the Anchalita, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 2, verses 104 through 106, there are descriptions of Mahavidev. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered her one of the maidservants of Srimati Radharani. Within this world, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had 3.5 very confidential devotees. The three were Swarup Damodar, Ramananda Roy, Sikhi Mahidi, and Sikhi Mahidi's sister. Mahavidev, being a woman, was considered a half. Thus it is known that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had 3.5 confidential devotees. So I think we'll leave it right there. All glories to Sri Guru, all Guranga, all Lord Chaitanya. Haribol.